You apologized for asking what the role pays. You apologized for the coat that was on sale. You apologized for the invoice you sent, the boundary you drew, and the cost of your own time. You apologized to the contractor for pointing out the mistake in his math. You apologized to the table for ordering the second glass of wine you paid for with your own card. You apologized to your mother for saying no to a loan you could have given but should not have. You have apologized for things you would not have apologized for if you were not a woman. The notebook on the table is small. It costs $4.50 at a stationery shop that is no longer there. The pages are unlined. The ink is black. It is not a budget. It is a ledger. It is a quiet, ongoing inventory of every time you paid a tax in apologies just to exist in the room where the money was being discussed. You write the apologies down. You do not know why you write them down. You are keeping a record of the softening. You are tracking the distance between what you earned and what you allowed yourself to claim. You are 34. You are sitting at a desk you bought used for $85. You are doing the math of your week. The numbers on the screen are clear. The balance in the account is exact. But the emotional weather surrounding the numbers is heavy. And it is entirely of your own making. You do not keep a financial budget, but you keep a behavioral inventory. You are a woman who manages the feelings of everyone around her before she manages her own capital. You do this instinctually. You do this before you even realize a transaction has occurred. When you send an email stating your hourly rate, you read it over 4 times. You look at the number. The number is fair. The number is the market rate. You know it is the market rate because you spent 3 hours researching it. But the number sits there on the white screen, naked and abrasive. It feels too loud. It feels impolite. So you wrap it in bubble wrap. You add the word, just. You add the phrase, if that works for your budget. You add an exclamation point to prove you are friendly. You end the email with a preemptive apology for taking up their time. You are paying a toll. Every time you assert a financial boundary, you pay a tax in apologies. You diminish your own leverage to protect the comfort of the person on the other side of the table. You do this in restaurants. You do this in performance reviews. You do this in relationships. You do this because you were taught, silently and continuously, that a woman with money is a disruption, and a disruption must be smoothed over. You are the one who does the smoothing. You use your own credibility as the sandpaper. You are 34. You are exhausted by the performance, but you do not know how to stop the play. The bank does not care if you are sorry. The market does not care if you are polite. Compounding does not check your tone. The architecture of capital is entirely indifferent to your social anxiety. It moves where it is directed. It grows where it is kept. The rule. The first one is this. An apology is a debt you assign to yourself. // pause // You assign it voluntarily. No one asked you for it. The invoice did not require it. The dinner bill did not demand it. The balance sheet does not recognize it. But you issue the debt anyway. You issue it because you believe that by lowering your own status in the transaction, you make the transaction safer. You believe that if you make yourself small, they will not punish you for asking for the money. But the economy of apologies is a false economy. It does not buy you respect. It does not buy you security. It only buys you a temporary reprieve from a discomfort you were meant to walk through, not avoid. Every time you apologize for a number, you signal to the room that you do not believe you deserve it. The room listens. The room takes notes. The room adjusts your value accordingly. You think you are being polite. You are actually negotiating against yourself, in real time, with the door wide open. You are giving away the principle of your own authority. She is 24. She is sitting in a grey chair in an office with overhead lights that hum. It is her first salary negotiation. The job is a coordinator role. The offer is $42,000. She knows, because she asked a male friend who works in a similar role, that the budget goes up to $45,000. She wants the 45. She drafts the email on her phone in the bathroom before she goes back to her desk to type it. The email takes 40 minutes to write. It is 5 sentences long. 3 of the sentences contain a justification. 2 of the sentences contain an apology. She apologizes for pushing back. She apologizes if the request is out of line. She states the number, but she states it as a question. She gets the money. The $45,000 is approved within 10 minutes. She feels a rush of relief, but the relief is immediately followed by a cold, quiet realization. She got the money, but she established the dynamic. She established that she is the one who feels bad for costing them. She established that her self-advocacy is a burden she feels guilty for imposing. The extra $3,000 hits her bank account every 2 weeks in small increments. The apology lives in her throat for the next 3 years. And then she is 28. The dinner check arrives at a table of 6. The restaurant is loud. The lighting is low. The bill is $340. She ordered a $14 salad and drank tap water because she is saving for a deposit on an apartment, and the budget is extremely tight. Someone at the table, someone who ordered the steak and 3 cocktails, suggests splitting the bill evenly. That is $56 each. She cannot afford $56. The math is absolute. The difference between 14 and 56 is $42. And that $42 is already allocated for groceries on Tuesday. She has to say no. The table is waiting. The credit cards are being tossed onto the small black tray. She speaks up. She says she only had the salad, but before the sentence is even finished, the apology spills out. She apologizes for being difficult. She apologizes for making the math complicated. She apologizes for ruining the flow of the evening. She pays her $14 plus tip, but she spends the rest of the dinner in a state of hot, quiet shame. She made the financially correct decision. She protected her capital. She honored her budget. But she ruined her own evening by treating her financial boundary as a social crime. She paid the $42 in emotional currency instead. She realizes, walking to the train alone, that she would rather lose money than be perceived as cheap. The ledger gets another entry. The cost is logged. And then she is 32. The promotion comes on a Friday. It is a massive jump. The title changes. The responsibilities change. The salary jumps to $92,000. Her partner, a man she has lived with for 3 years, makes $65,000. She is now out-earning him by a margin that cannot be ignored or rounded down. When she tells him, sitting on the edge of the sofa with her coat still on, she softens the blow. She does not celebrate. She does not say she earned it, even though she worked 60-hour weeks for 18 months to get it. She immediately begins to dismantle her own achievement. She says taxes will take most of the increase. She says it is just a lucky year. She says the company is probably overpaying her. She diminishes the work. She shrinks the victory. She apologizes for the distance the money creates between them. She does not use the word sorry, but the apology is in the cadence of her voice. It is in the way she quickly changes the subject. It is in the way she begins, quietly, to pay for more of the groceries, more of the dinners, more of the flights. Without ever mentioning it, she subsidizes his lifestyle to apologize for her own success. She protects his ego by hiding her ledger. She thinks this is what love looks like. She thinks this is how you keep the peace. The peace is kept, but the resentment begins to compound. Silent and invisible, in a separate account. And then she is 36. The mechanic calls at noon. The estimate for the car repair was $800. The final bill is $1,250. He explains the extra parts. He speaks quickly, using terms she only half understands, rushing through the justification. She is paying the bill. She has the money. She needs the car. She asks for the itemized breakdown. It is a reasonable request. It is a required request. But she starts the sentence with an apology. I am so sorry to be a pain. I just want to make sure I understand. She is handing a man $1,200 of her own money. Money she traded hours of her life to acquire. And she is managing his emotional state while she does it. She is softening the edges of her own consumer rights. He hears the apology. He hears the hesitation. He sighs loudly into the phone, performing annoyance. She immediately recoils. She drops the request. She hands over the credit card number. The $450 difference is paid. It is not paid for the car parts. It is paid as a conflict-avoidance fee. It is the price of not being perceived as a difficult woman. She writes the number in the notebook when she gets home. $450. The cost of a sigh. And then she is 39. The milestone is reached quietly on a Tuesday morning. $100,000 in liquid savings. It took 12 years. It took discipline that bordered on isolation. It took staying in when others went out. It took wearing the old coat. It took entirely unglamorous, invisible choices made day after day in the dark. She mentions it to a friend over coffee. Not the number, but the feeling of safety. The friend, who makes more but saves less, looks at her over the rim of the cup and says, "Well, it must be nice to have that kind of disposable income." The comment is a tiny, sharp blade. It is designed to reframe discipline as privilege. It is designed to make the achievement feel unearned. The apology rises in her throat, automatic and bitter. She almost says it. She almost agrees. She almost says, "Yes, I've been very lucky." She almost dismantles the 12 years of quiet, brutal labor to make her friend feel better about her own lack of capital. She almost pays the tax one more time. She stops. She closes her mouth. She lets the silence sit between them. She watches the friend squirm in the quiet. She does not rescue the moment. She lets the discomfort belong to the person who created it. The ledger stays closed. The entry is not made. What it cost was not money. The math of the lost dollars is easy to calculate. You can add up the unnegotiated salary bumps, the subsidized dinners, the inflated mechanic bills, the uninvoiced hours. You can put a hard dollar figure on the conflict-avoidance tax. It is a large number. It is a number that would buy a house, or a year of freedom, or a quiet exit from a loud room. But what it actually cost you was not the capital. What it cost you was the architecture of your own confidence. It was the belief that you had a right to exist in the marketplace without paying an emotional toll for entry. Every time you apologized for asking for what you were owed, you chipped away at the foundation of your own sovereignty. You trained yourself to view your own financial boundaries as aggressive acts. You trained the world to view your money as negotiable. I kept that same ledger for 10 years. I apologized for every invoice I sent until I was 35. I know the exact weight of the breath you take before you make yourself smaller to protect the ego of the person across the table. The weight of the apology is cumulative. It does not disappear when the transaction is over. It settles in your shoulders. It settles in the way you walk into a room. It changes the tenor of your voice. It turns you into someone who is constantly asking for permission to hold space. You spend your 20s and your 30s performing a version of financial compliance that leaves you exhausted, respected by no one, and quietly furious at yourself. You are angry not because they took the money, but because you handed it to them wrapped in a bow, asking if they were okay with the packaging. You cannot compound wealth while you are simultaneously apologizing for acquiring it. The two energies are fundamentally incompatible. One requires standing firmly on the ground. The other requires constantly shifting your weight to accommodate the wind. The shift does not happen with an announcement. You do not send a memo to the world stating that you will no longer be managing their feelings regarding your money. You do not become loud. You do not become aggressive. You do not adopt the vocabulary of the finance men who treat every negotiation as a battlefield. You do not need to perform toughness. The rule, the last one, is this: the ledger can be closed without permission. //pause // You simply stop. You write the email stating your rate. You put a period at the end of the sentence. And you press send. You do not add the exclamation point. You do not add the justification. You let the number stand alone. When the restaurant bill arrives, you state your portion. You put down your card, and you look out the window. You let the silence hang. When you out-earn the room, you do not shrink. You let them deal with the scale of your life. When the mechanic asks for more, you ask for the breakdown, and you do not smile when you ask it. You discover very quickly that the world does not end. The sky does not fall. Some people will be annoyed. Some people will call you difficult. Some people will miss the version of you that subsidized their comfort with your capital. Let them miss her. She is no longer funding their peace of mind. You will not believe this yet. That is fine. You will feel the urge to apologize rise in your throat 100 more times. But you will learn to swallow it. You will learn to let the silence do the heavy lifting. You will learn that the most powerful financial position a woman can take is absolute, unbothered stillness. The notebook costs $4.50. The pages are full. The ink is dry. You do not throw it away. You keep it in a drawer to remind yourself of what it cost to be polite. You are 40 now. You have stopped apologizing for the space you take up. You have stopped apologizing for the capital you hold. The numbers move. You watch them move. You do not say a word. She was right. The woman who told you to stop saying sorry. She was right about the silence. If this found you at the right time, you know what to do.